Hey everyone, my name is Ricardo Avila. Let me ask you something. Does your heart race when you hear great music? I thought so. Does your heart ache when you hear a compelling story? I know it does. I also know your heart is going to love listening to the PC Music Diary. Your favorite Popping Collars hosts, maybe a surprise guest star or two, reveal the songs that have had the biggest impact on their lives through heartwarming, heartbreaking, and heartfelt stories. So listen to your heart and check out the PC Music Diary on the Popping Collars feed, wherever you get your podcasts. Pop, pop goes the heart rate.
I'm a podcaster.
What on earth is that?
No. I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at you. You just reminded me of my mom.
Wally, what are you doing?
She's the worst. You're fantastic. A podcast is kind of like it's like a radio show that's not on the radio. It's on the internet. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That's also like my mom. It makes it sound more confusing, doesn't it? It sounds like this.
Welcome to Popping Collars, the podcast that lives at the intersection of religion and pop culture. I'm your host for this very special episode. And my name is Liz Easton. I'm the canon to the ordinary in the Diocese of Nebraska. I am here with the Popping Collars crew. And we're going to go around and introduce ourselves, starting with Greg Knight.
Liz, you're so good at this.
Well, thanks. I love it.
We should have you host these more.
I love it.
Thanks, Liz. Hi, my name is Greg Knight. I am in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. I have a new job.
Yeah, you do.
Yes, you do.
That silence you hear is like these three people knowing.
Hold on. No, I'm more like you've never used the gardens before.
Where do the gardens come from?
Well, that's where I'm working. So I would always say.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Working,
Okay.
right. So I used to work in Palm Beach, but now I'm working in Palm Beach Gardens.
The gardens.
Nice.
Okay, got it.
But yeah, so I'm no longer at the Church of Bethesda by the Sea after 12 years, and now I'm at
a long time.
First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Palm Beaches.
This takes me back to Star King, the Unitarian Universalist Seminary that was right across the street from CDSP, and when we were in seminary.
It's our roots. Back to our roots.
That's right.
I was in CPE at the VA hospital with a Star King student.
Yes.
Great times. Great.
All you've done is cross the street, Greg.
You just crossed the street.
On Holy Hill.
So lots of new things in my world. Learning about this new community, really good folks, really like just dedicated, like hardworking crew. It's my favorite kind of church. It's the kind of church that Liz describes all the time. It's a scrappy church.
I guess I'm interrupting again. I know enough about Greg's coworkers to know that they have great taste in music as well.
That was Ricardo giving himself a little pat on the back. They really liked Ricardo's funeral episode.
Oh.
That's true.
Yes, his music diary.
We've added a whole new wing to the Popping Collars listenership, and
yay!
And they like to frequently cite the episodes that they like, and the episodes that they like. Usually, I'm not on. It's usually like. And they especially like Ricardo's taste in music. So,
oh, yay! Ricardo has great taste in music.
Oh, and he's the first to tell you.
Well, that's a great segue to Ricardo Avila. Tell us what you're up to. Where are you at?
Liz, hi. Liz, you are doing such a great job as host.
Thank you.
I am Ricardo Avila. I am the rector of St. Luke's Episcopal Church in Los Gatos, California. I actually came prepared with something to say today. I am officially retiring the T-shirt that I have worn throughout COVID because it's torn, and William won't
see that.
He is not up for it. And this T-shirt has a history Liz Easton will know very well because it is the Bruce Springsteen concert on Broadway. t-shirt.
I don't know if you guys know that Ricardo and I saw Bruce Springsteen on Broadway.
Oh man.
I don't know if we've ever talked about that before.
Boy, it's really been a hot minute or two since y'all mentioned that.
You forgot.
But
Yeah.
I'm actually shocked at the quality of this t-shirt that is torn at the neckline.
I know.
How long ago was this show?
Was it 2018?
Yeah, probably 2018.
What have you been doing in this shirt, Ricardo, that has a hole at the neckline?
It's my pajama shirt. It's what I wear in the evening when I come home. Like
I see. The
For like 6
quote unquote pajama shirt. Okay, I've got it. Okay, I got it. No, I actually think the tear is in a place that's kind of hot. I think it's sad that William can't really see that. I think others are in agreement. Yes.
What if you told him that he couldn't wear his bow ties anymore? Because
does he get rid of like frayed ones, even if they're his favorite?
Your Oxford shirt's a little frayed at the cuffs there, William.
He does get rid of his frayed bow ties, I will say. And
Oh my God. Okay, well.
I think if I wore like another t-shirt once in a while, it wouldn't be so bad. But this is literally every day. So I think I'm going to throw it.
Wow.
No, I'll put it in the drawer so that when I'm an old person and I go through my drawers, Liz Easton and this concert.
Exactly.
Have you done the t-shirt quilt yet?
Oh,
Ricardo?
Oh no, right.
I have one. I'm sure I'm working on material here, working at the high school on round 2 with the number of shirts that go around this place.
How cool would that be to make a quilt out of out of old concert tees, and you basically have like a full like band quilt going.
They're great. I can recommend my Etsy person to you, but I don't know whether they're still in the biz, but who knows. But yeah, you go on Etsy and you just find somebody who you
send
like.
off your shirts.
You send off your shirts and it's great. They'll collab with you. It's great.
I have a Madonna concert t-shirt from her Like a Prayer tour. I didn't go, but I got it at a used thrift store. And all these gay men, when I would wear it, were like, I'll buy that off you. $50. But I still have it.
You.
Anyway, so, I'm doing well. Thank you. Except goodbye to Bruce Springsteen, I think.
Oh, that's too bad. Farewell, Bruce.
Hi, Bruce.
Ricardo, I watched Bruce Springsteen live in New York on Netflix t-shirt is still in great shape. So I don't know.
That's so weird, Greg. So weird.
Quality. Yeah.
Right.
Huh.
Okay.
What about you, Betsy Carmody? What are you up to?
Well, Liz.
You drinking a margarita over there, or is that a mojito? What's happening?
It's my faux again jalapeno margarita.
It's a mocktail.
No, it has a little bit of something in it, but it's my Trader Joe's jalapeno limeade. Which is always it's a great starter. It's just a great starter. Love TJ's. I'm here in my living room, which I normally record in our den because I got a puppy. Yes. Why not? The school year's starting, right? My senior gets to live on dorm this year on campus here at the Episcopal High School where I serve as head chaplain. And so Ruby's living on dorm. And so I've replaced her with a dog. And as any good parent does, when their nest is empty, you're like, no, I can not have silence. The podcasts are not enough. I need a living, breathing being in the home. And so we have Ginger here. Maybe we can post up some pictures on the socials. She's a Chihuahua Shepherd. Her father actually is a Chihuahua Shepherd, and most people give me a look that shows me they're imagining dog sex when I mention the breed, which is troubling. But her father's a Chihuahua Shepherd. Her mother is a small brown dog of some variety, which we only found out because the lovely nurse at the vet recognized her from her litter because the nurse fosters at the same rescue where she came from, which was great and got me pictures of the parents. So,
wow.
She's very cute. She's probably almost about 8 pounds, I would say at this point. And she has a great personality, can be very prancy with a magnolia leaf in her mouth to show everyone that she has it. But as I told the gang here before we started recording, it's like living with a celebrity. She's much cuter than I am, much younger than I am. And it's like I've traded for a younger model. She's pretty great. So yeah, so it's more adjusting to a new school year with a new little furry friend.
Yeah.
But she's a great little lady.
Yay! Welcome to the
Yay.
Popping Collars family. Speaking
Ooh.
of Trader Joe's, I went to
It
Trader
is that
Joe's
time.
yesterday. I
Yeah.
do.
What is
love,
the scent?
This is like a pumpkin vanilla.
Oh, is that overwhelming?
No, I like it. I'm pretty picky
Okay.
with candles, and I like kind of
Yeah.
sweet, like baked good candles. I don't like antiseptic smelling candles. Your pines and your ocean breezes, for
Oh.
example. I'm not
Oh,
into.
interesting. I'm more
Yeah.
into that, I think, a little. Okay,
not
this
me.
is an interesting thing for us.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought
So
you were going to
went
say you lit your first fire, and I was like,
No, there's no
God,
fireplace
what?
here, unfortunately.
Oh, good Lord, thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But
So
yeah,
what kind of smell are we talking about? Is this like PSL, like Starbucks going on?
yeah, I would say it's pretty heavy on the vanilla scent, which I do like. They also have an apple cider, I think, scented candle, which also smells very good. I got some of those. I went to Trader Joe's specifically for those reasons yesterday, and frozen edamame, because their frozen edamame is superior.
Shelled or unshelled?
Unshelled.
Yes, nice. I agree with that.
Wait, what do you do with frozen edamame?
5 hours later.
This is my nutrition podcast. Welcome to my nutrition podcast. Yeah, it's great here. It's fall, but it's also 90 degrees, which is kind of a bummer. So we're waiting for that. Speaking of concerts, I saw Gillian Welch and David Rawlings in concert last weekend. It was
Ooh.
fantastic. Highly recommend. They're on tour right now. Highly recommend catching them if you can. Well, we're so glad that you're joining us on this episode of the pod, which is one of our what would you call it? Like a flagship episode, perhaps?
Yeah.
A mothership episode.
Yeah. Becoming
It's an annual.
rarer and rarer these days. This
Yes,
is
It's an
that's right.
annual. I mean, I never know, like with like flowers, right? Are they annuals or
Perennial.
perennials? I don't understand.
I don't know.
Yeah,
But we do
yeah.
this podcast every year. And one of the things that's fun about it is we all interpret the prompt differently. I have a feeling we're going to do that again tonight or today, whenever you're listening to it. But this is our pop culture time travel episode. Now, this is not pop culture about time travel, although I suppose it could be. You could make it work in the Venn diagram of pop culture. However, the premise of this podcast is if we could choose a time to which we would travel to experience pop culture at that time and in that time, what would it be? Is that what we all agreed on?
That is what we agreed on.
Okay, good.
Kind of.
And we've been all over the place. And
Kind of.
Yeah.
Greg?
I mean, we're
Are you gonna? What are you gonna do here?
we're
What's that?
traveling
Are you
back to
doing
a time of pop history and looking at, something that, yeah.
but in my imagination, we are time traveling.
Oh, okay.
That's important to me. Okay.
I got you.
Otherwise, it's just we're just talking about pop culture. We need the premise of us time traveling.
Got you.
Okay.
Got you.
All right.
Okay.
I got
I'm
you.
with you.
Now that we have that squared away, Greg, how are we doing this? Are we spinning a wheel? Are we reaching into a
We're
bag?
going to
What's
the
going
bag.
on?
We're
All
going to the
right.
bag.
Round robin style, back to the bag.
Here's the bag on camera.
Let's see that hand go into the bag.
Yeah,
Here's
Ricardo
the
doesn't
hand
trust
going
the
into
bag.
Should we post the bag on Reels so that people finally know that there's actually a bag?
Yes, we should. And this is an interesting, I feel like now is the time to say this. Popping Collars has just like come screeching back into social media.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was happening.
Yeah, we have.
One day I was just like, all of a sudden, like, whoa, this podcast that I've been part of for over a decade is now on Instagram. And it was great fun.
Yeah.
And so now you can keep up with us on Insta at Popping Collars Podcast. And we've added video, a little clips from time to time of a video pod. So you can finally see what we look like. I know that's always a little weird, What are you saying, Betsy? You're muted.
I'm saying it's a hot topic because I know now everyone's going to want to see that hole in Ricardo's shirt
Ricardo's
and how
shirt.
that little bit of skin there. Oh my God.
Mhm.
Yep.
Put
Very
it away.
sexy.
Put it
Very
away.
sexy.
Put it away.
I'm getting turned on. I got to put my hoodie.
Oh no, don't leave it out. Leave it out.
You can see our homes, the laundry room that
The
Greg's
laundry
always
room?
in.
Look at this.
Yeah,
It
look at
Incredible.
that.
is.
Ricardo's beautiful library. Oh
Ricardo
my
reads
goodness.
books.
Yeah,
like a
look
real
at Betsy's
priest.
puppy.
Oh, I buy books. Thank you.
I'm in my little
Who doesn't
hodgepodge.
even want to be with me is sitting at the end of the couch looking down the hall for someone else
Rude.
to come in the apartment.
Rude.
That's
Oh.
true.
Rude.
Yeah. Well, anyway, now you can follow us on Instagram and it's a lot of fun. So, Greg, who is our first time traveler?
Well, Liz, go ahead and fire up the DeLorean because we're
Yes!
going wherever you're going.
All right. Wow. What an honor. I went kind of meta with this, and I hope you guys will come with me on this journey because, well, I don't know if I understood the assignment myself, but the problem is I got to thinking about something and then I decided I want to talk about it. Here's my story. When I go to the gym, I watch television shows that I've already watched because I don't have to look at them, right? So I did this recently with Gilmore Girls. Right now I'm doing it with Friday Night Lights, which is, I think, one of the best TV shows of all time. So I'm watching Friday Night Lights. There's this character by the name of Tim Riggins. Some of you are familiar with him. And yeah, he was just a charmer. And the thing about Tim Riggins is he's like a troubled teen, okay? So he's not like paying attention in school. He's cheating on his homework. He's drinking. He's carousing. He has a heart of gold. Don't you worry. But he's like a ne'er-do-well, kind of. He's a kid that you would think isn't going to amount to much. This is a long
Okay, all
introduction.
right. Carousing and ne'er-do-well, both used. Points given. Continue.
Thank you. And anyway, this isn't even about Tim Riggins. I'm not time traveling to Tim Riggins, okay? I outgrew that. I would time travel to Coach Taylor nowadays. But come on. Anyway, the point is that in this episode, Tim is like not in school, he's cutting class or something, whatever. Someone comes to the door and he's laying on the couch reading a magazine. This is where my time traveling is coming from. And I'm thinking like how interesting that even a kid who is like not doing his homework, is screwing around, is still reading like print media. Like that was how he was passing the time. And so then I started thinking of kids these days, including myself, how they don't pick up magazines. You're scrolling on your phone. So I started thinking that I might like to time travel to a time when I was a child, only as an adult. I would like to be an adult in a time that I lived through as a child. And I'm thinking like the 80s or 90s. And here is my point. It's partly about pop culture, but it's mainly about the experience of culture outside of social media and smartphones in particular. Like I would like to know what it would be like to experience a presidential election without the access to media and the way that we engage with media today. When I would like to experience and I got some of this in the 90s when I was an older teenager, and even in the early 2000s before everyone really had smartphones, but like interests and hobbies that you had to cultivate with like great intention. Mm-hmm. Like you had to chase down the record or the bootleg or the zines. You had to read books to get knowledgeable about a thing that you were interested in. You could have arguments and debates with friends and colleagues that had a capacity for like not knowing, like you weren't like, wait, let me Google that and I'll get the right answer. Mm-hmm. You had to sort of like figure things out together. Water cooler conversations where people actually were watching the same television and probably critically the same news every night. And so then we're engaging with the same information. Like, I know that for most of us, we lived through this in some way, and time passes, and I don't want to be too nostalgic. I don't want to like clutch my pearls about kids these days, but I really would like to go back to that time and experience it with the maturity that I have now and the interest that I have now, as opposed to when I was a kid.
Welcome to the Microsoft Windows 95 video guide, starring two of television's hottest comedy personalities, Jennifer Aniston and Matthew Perry.
Microsoft's fifth floor. Ladies' modems, children's shareware, and our bridal peripheral salon.
Wow. Taskbars and email and shortcuts, oh my.
Taskbars and email and shortcuts, oh my.
And you are?
This is Jennifer Aniston. I'm Matthew Perry. We're here to see Mr. Bill Gates about a possible starring role in the video guide to Microsoft Windows 95. So this is Bill Gates' computer. I mean, that is like using Wayne Gretzky's hockey stick, you know?
Huh. Oddly enough, none of it seems to rub off.
Look, I meant for her to sit at the keyboard.
And where's the button that instantly kills anybody that calls me honey?
You know, I remember losing entire essays in college because I couldn't remember their file names. You know, I just zoned out.
I've lost entire relationships that same way.
Really?
Oh, you don't want to go there.
Taskbar? Is that anything like a Snickers bar? Does that have nougat?
What is nougat? Does anybody know that? So the recycle bin is like an enabler for the indecisive.
And undo is the way we were of computing?
When she brushes his bangs at the end.
Oh.
Okay, excuse me. Man in the room. No Streisand. We talked about that.
Yeah, okay.
Communicating online is the hot thing right now, and the Microsoft Network is your on-ramp to the information superhighway.
So it's kind of like issue-specific party lines?
Is she naive or what?
No, couldn't have said it better myself.
Would you like
So
the side of...
I know this is a little bit of a cheat. It encompasses a lot of pop culture, and it's more about the absence of certain types of pop culture, specifically social media influencers and like truthlessness in media and discourse.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'd like to time travel to the 90s or the 80s. And the great caveat of this episode of the podcast every year is that I am a straight white woman of middle class and upper middle class origin. Like, I understand that my privilege would follow me into different periods of time as well. The 80s and 90s were not great for every population in America, certainly. So I do want to say that. But that is my curiosity. What would it be like to be an adult in a world that I only observed as a child? Thoughts, questions,
Interesting.
observations?
Liz, your premise made me think of something. I was listening to a pod the other day, and they were talking about music sales, like basically just album sales and stuff like that, and how you look at the sale of old albums from prior to like streaming music or even like digital music that you could download off of iTunes and stuff. And it was just astronomical numbers. Like these albums would just sell in at rates that we just don't see nowadays. And it was pointed out to me, something that seemed totally obvious and would have probably seemed obvious at the time that we just don't think about now, which is that you weren't just buying the album for yourself. You were likely also buying that album for a friend to give as a gift and stuff like that. And so there's like repeat buying of like the same items. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. And it just, it's just so funny to think about that now of like, oh yeah, if I want to see a movie, I can't guarantee that I'm going to get the VHS. Like, I probably have to go to the theater a few times. It's this idea of like you participate with the pop culture in a different way.
Well, and I think there's like a shallowness. I think of this with politics, especially, that like when I was younger and like being exposed to Noam Chomsky, for example, like having to I had to sort of grapple with a big idea and lots of ideas, and there was sort of a depth to it. You couldn't have a shallow engagement with like leftist politics, for example. And now I know lots of young people who identify as leftists who are really able to use kind of like pithy language that is really divorced from its meaning, to the point where like you'll hear kids say that they're Marxists and stuff in a way that, like, when I was younger, if you did that, you were making a really big point. And I just think that there's like a diluting of a lot of identity, because we're not going deeper, and you're not getting, your interest doesn't have to go that deep anymore. And in fact, it's encouraged not to go that deep.
You know, and I look at Ricardo and I, because we lived through times where you couldn't look this up in elections and things, where that was more the thing, you know, because I've been looking at a lot of the high school kids here, because I was able to vote my senior year in high school in the 1992 election. Just the difference in the way the media comes in for them, and the kind of weeding through of things that I feel like I really didn't have to do. You know, nightly news was something that you would trust and you just kind of would go with. And the printed news that you got was something that you would, you know, go with. And it's just a much more rocky landscape. And maybe we were naive to some extent, but it is also just so many more avenues now than it was before as well. Because I feel like your time travel would also then just be there would be a stripping away of voices as well.
Exactly.
In your time traveling.
Yep.
It would be lost. That would be, you would have to go seeking those.
But right now I have too many voices, and that might be, that's on me. Like, there's some of this that I could manufacture. Like, I don't need to watch TikTok as much as I do.
But diverse voices you would not get.
Yeah, well, you'd have to seek them out. That's for sure.
You would have to seek them out, and you would have to have a diverse friend group. You would have to have these aspects in your life that perhaps as a white woman you might not have.
Yep.
So like that ends up becoming more important.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is like the content changes based on who's telling stories, obviously. Like, that's what, to Betsy's point, right? But like, I imagine that probably the bulk of what we bump up against when we have like, oh man, I wonder, you know, what it would be like before this or before that. It's like, it's exactly what you're saying. It's this this exponential growth of technology, and the fact that human brains and systems and institutions aren't capable of keeping up with it.
Yes.
So as a result, we feel like we're behind. We're constantly behind, like whatever the medium is. Yeah.
Okay, so I have three things. So Liz, I think I understood what you're talking about, but I'm kind of riffing in another direction maybe. I remember reading something, and I don't know if it was in fiction or not, but where there are apparently a lot of people who have the fantasy of going back to their high school years, but with the intelligence and the kind of bravado or the wisdom of someone in their 50s or whatever. And I totally have that. I've like, boy, if I could go back, and especially in college, if I could be in college and be as brave as I am now, and like together about like my sexuality and about like how little some things really matter, I would just kick butt. There's something about, it's like a thing, I think, even to go back and want to relive the times with more with more wisdom, more confidence, and more sense of yourself. So that's one thing. I don't know. That's kind of not what you're talking about.
No, but I think that's a piece of it for sure.
Yeah. The second thing is that whole, you go back and wish that it was, you know, that it was no longer iPhones, but then you're like, ugh, I wish there weren't DVDs. I wish there were still albums, or, oh, I wish there weren't albums, but, you know, 78s or whatever. Yeah, that's in something that is in my share, probably. But I think it's so funny that maybe every age has its nostalgia. And if you could travel back in time to the nostalgia you feel, all you would meet are people having nostalgia for a previous period, you know? I have very, very vivid memories of going through the CD racks of Streetlight Records in San Francisco on Market Street for hours. Like, I didn't even know what I wanted. I just sort of was looking for names of bands I recognized, and you know, I didn't have a lot of money, so it's not like I owned everything I wanted to have. And so I'd start gathering them up, and like I'd have 14 CDs and knew I could only take two, but I wanted to gather them up. And so I'd spend like 2 hours just blissfully unaware. And then I'd look and I'd have to pick and I'd put all the other ones back in their alphabetical order. And it would be just so satisfying. And now kids, they're like, you know, play the song on Spotify. Hey Siri, blah, blah, blah. Play the song. Oh, just activated. And
Blah, blah, blah.
did I say blah, blah, blah?
You did.
Okay. So, you know, and I think that I don't know that they're going to have memories. Oh, I remember that day I went to Spotify and looked up the first Taylor Swift album or something. And that tangibility of the experience that I got to have with CDs, with albums, browsing for hours, with bookstores you can still have. And I think you still have it, Liz, with your books, your tangible books. And people, you know, they might remember where they were when they listened to a certain audiobook. They were on a hike or something, but it's not the same. And I think there is something lost. And there's sort of, I don't want to say a shallowness of experience, but like a less deep and imprinted experience as a result.
Good job, Liz. Liz just wants a magazine, you guys.
All I want is a magazine, guys.
Fine.
Even though I subscribe to the Atlantic and I don't read the print version. I just read the website.
I think I'm about to get a subscription to The Bitter Southerner, I think is what I'm about to.
Oh my goodness.
It's really good. Check out their website, check out their stuff.
Okay.
Very interesting. It's their whole thing is Better South, Better America, Better World.
Oh.
So I think being a Southerner, it is appealing to me as a progressive Southerner.
Okay. Which time machine vehicle should we jump in this time? Maybe the TARDIS from Doctor Who. Will take us to wherever Ricardo is going to lead us.
So I am going to be living in Paris for the month of May 2025 as part of a sabbatical. And I am very excited about that. And one of the reasons I'm excited about that is that I get to pretend to be a Parisian in different time periods in Impressionism of the 1870s or whenever the heck that was, 1880s, Post-Impressionism. But the period I would pick for no reason other than I just romanticize it a lot, even though I haven't read a lot of the literature, is 1920s Paris. In particular, Ernest Hemingway living there from 21 to 26. James Joyce lived there from 1920 to 1940. Those are the only two things I've looked up. And but Gertrude Stein lived there with Alice B. Toklas, and there was this whole community, and Picasso came through, of course. And I think what it is, well, I will actually, just to say, I know the apartment I'm renting already in Paris. It's in the Latin Quarter, and it's in a courtyard of, a few apartments, not a lot. And in one of those apartments, James Joyce finished Ulysses. And it might be the place I'm staying. So it's very exciting. And right down the road is where Ernest Hemingway lived with his first wife. So the excitement for me of that time period is being in Paris, being among all those ideas, and there's kind of that fervor. So in a way, it's nostalgia for the literary world of Paris, time travel. While I would start in the 1920s, I think it's more about a place people passed through and gained inspiration from, or kind of went through some transition in their lives in. And so I've always romanticized Paris, and the fact that I get to be there for a month next year is really exciting. And as I said, I think you do have to, I can't be as free and easy with some of that stuff as I am now. And that's kind of the reality of time travel, I think, as you all say. I'd want to hang out with the famous people. I don't just want to live there and hear about Hemingway or something, or F. Scott Fitzgerald. But I read A Movable Feast the one time I was in Paris, and there's something about reading about a place where you're traveling to while you're there that's really it takes it up a notch, And so that, especially since reading that and all the places that they went to and the cafes and the bars and what alley they got drunk and passed out in, it's all very romantic. So I'd pick 1920s Paris for all of its stuff. it's post World War One, and there's a sort of a cynicism and yet a sort of a fervor of creativity, and it's before the 1930s and the Spanish Civil War, and of course World War II. So that's where I would go. And the thing I said earlier, Greg, about the whole going back to nostalgia, well, that Woody Allen movie Midnight in Paris is exactly about that.
You box?
No. I mean, not really, no.
What are you writing?
Novel.
About what?
It's about a man who works in a nostalgia shop.
What the hell is a nostalgia shop?
You know, a place where they sell old things, memorabilia. And does that sound terrible?
No subject is terrible if the story is true, if the prose is clean and honest, and if it affirms courage and grace under pressure.
You know, can I ask you the biggest favor in the world? No.
What is it?
Would you read it?
Your novel.
Yeah, it's like 400 pages long, and I'm just looking for, just an opinion.
My opinion is I hate it.
I mean, you haven't even read it.
If it's bad, I'll hate it because I hate bad writing. If it's good, I'll be envious and hate it all the more. You don't want the opinion of another writer.
Yeah, it's just, you know what it is? It's just, I'm having a hard time, trusting somebody to evaluate it.
Writers are competitive.
I'm not going to be competitive with you.
You're too self-effacing. It's not manly. If you're a writer, declare yourself the best writer. But you're not as long as I'm around, unless you want to put the gloves on and settle it.
No, I don't.
Okay, I'm not going to read your novel, but I'll tell you what I'll do.
Yes?
I'll bring it to Gertrude Stein's. She's the only one I trust with my writing.
You'll show my novel to Gertrude Stein?
Give it to me.
I'll bring it to you.
She gets back from Spain tomorrow.
Great. I'm going to go get it. I can't tell you how excited I am. This is giving me such a lift that my heart is just racing right now. Okay, but no, what? Okay, I'm going to get it and then I'll be back.
You remember Owen Wilson gets picked up at midnight just to hang out with Hemingway and everybody. And then somehow he travels with that woman who had a nostalgia for the previous century. And I can't think of the Belle Arts. I can't remember the previous, or the Impressionists. And then they had nostalgia for the previous kind of group of artists that lived there. And no one's kind of satisfied in their own time in a weird way. And so that's what I would do. And at a certain level, that's probably what I'm going to try to do while I'm there visiting art museums and taking literary tours and walks and historical walks. That's it.
I have a book recommendation for you.
Yeah.
We may have talked about this at one point, but it's called The Age of Light. Have you seen this?
I have read it on
Oh,
audio.
you have? Oh my God.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. So just so everyone else knows, it's a little later. I think it starts in the late 20s and then goes through World War II. But it's a novel about the photographer Lee Miller, who was
Yes.
Yes. So now
I was
going to
recommend. I was going to say you need to hang out with Man Ray's friend group.
Yes, exactly. So she ends up having a relationship with Man Ray, and then she becomes a war photographer. She takes that famous self-portrait in Hitler's bathtub, and now they're making a movie out of it where Kate Winslet plays Lee Miller, and it looks fantastic. So,
really
you've already read it, but I recommend it. The Age of Light.
It's
by
terrific.
Whitney Shearer.
You just had it right there. Look at that.
It was
I mean, like he's hanging out with like Salvador Dali, Ezra Pound, Ernest Hemingway, and like all these cool people. I think some of these people are potentially gay. They could be your friends. Like I'm looking just at his portraits of his friends. And it's just, Man Ray, is he problematic on some fronts?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Faux show. But like, I think you're right that this is a real hub of creativity. I think anytime you're in a place anytime you're in a time that's following a war, potentially, especially something that's like the Great War, like we're never going to have another war again. Everybody, spoiler alert, there's going to be another war. But, everybody is living because they've seen so much death. And so they're living in a way that is very different than I think how we live. Right. So I agree with you that kind of finding those stories that are in between wars are very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
in those.
The funny thing about history too is that you can't recognize history when you're in the middle of it, right?
Mhm.
So it's altogether possible that you're going to be over there in Paris, and 40 years from now there's going to be some podcaster that's like, man, I wish I could have been in Paris in 2024
When Ricardo is there.
Ricardo is there.
Single name, Ricardo.
Ricardo.
Picasso. Oh my God. Yeah, some AI robots are going to be reminiscing on a podcast.
Okay.
All right, we're back to the bag.
We're gonna hop in the hot tub time machine with Betsy. Betsy's.
Greg. If it's a saltwater hot tub, because I don't.
I'm
like
running
smell
out of
chlorine.
pop culture time machines here.
Chlorine before I go to bed. Like, I just don't like it. So I like kind of a clean kind of situation. Okay. All right. We talk about, the artists coalescing. So I had a little bit of an internal debate about going with like Alphabet City in New York in the 90s, like that. I didn't know whether I could be cool enough to do that. Or I just didn't feel like I was cool enough to do that. But I told the team here that I did some surveying of my community before this. And so I talked to like my kids on the robotics team, some other adults, my advisory, to see where they would want to go. So I'm going to share their answers first before I share mine.
Oh, good.
So I have a student who wants to go to a Jimi Hendrix concert. He hadn't thought extensively about it to be like, Monterey Pop Festival, Burning Guitar, he hadn't kind of, thought specifically enough, but definitely a Jimi Hendrix concert. Another student said Michael Jackson halftime show at the Super Bowl, Rent the night before the opening. This was very specific from a student. They had seen a performance of Radiohead at the MTV Beach House in 1993. This is like it's 17, 18-year-old person where Tom York jumps in the pool at some point.
Whoa.
In the performance. So deep dive Radiohead choice. Star Wars when it was released in the theaters, the original Star Wars. Some specific Barcelona soccer games. Wanting to go back to high school in the 2000s. So this came up
in high school.
twice. This 2000s nostalgia, Liz, is really washing over some of my students here.
That is
with your
crazy
low-rise
to think
jeans.
that someone would want to go to high school in the age that I went to high school. That's crazy.
Yeah, with the Fray and Modest Mouse and the OC, and they want to like.
They won't like those low-rise jeans. Not really.
They won't. Their underwear and their butt crack will show.
Yeah, the low-rise jeans that are in style right now are just mid-rise jeans. The low-rise jeans that we were forced to wear were
low
pornographic.
rise.
Yeah, absolutely. It's terrible.
Yes. Yes. Like I actually gave Ruby a pair of low-rise jeans that I still had because I held on to them because they were from the age of paying for a lot of money for jeans. When we did Legally Blonde, I said, "Oh, these are actually from the era that the movie is from, and that here, try them on." She's like, "Mom, I can't dance in these. I can't do the musical."
Yeah, the zipper was this short.
Yeah, no, it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's bad. So I loved all the suggestions. I love the specificity. I love the generality. It was all good. So I ended up choosing going back to 1991 when I would like to be the age that I was at the time. I would like to not be 49 years old. And I would like to be able to attend the very first Lollapalooza tour.
Wow.
When I started Lollapalooza, it was a farewell for Jane's Addiction.
Perry said, I want to leave on a high note. I want to do a summer tour.
We got to do it again. Coming down the mountain! Would you guys like to see that?
It changed the music industry.
There's an energy here that's sick of corporate bull.
We had all been underground bands, but that was changing.
It felt like a revolution.
We're trying to make adults sick.
That was the Declaration of Independence of the alternative nation.
We weren't going to be told what to do.
The NRA was set up next to PETA.
If you're morally offended, out of here.
when a car is going real fast, it gets harder and harder to jump out.
Lollapalooza has gone from being a fringe thing to promoting popular music.
Oh my God, here come the bad boys of hard rock.
People are like, what the f*** is this?
We were a victim of our own success.
Lollapalooza, the rock summer tour, died this week.
I didn't know what I was going to do, and I was very embarrassed.
So we contacted Perry.
He looked like he had lost a child.
And it was reborn.
It's on.
Lollapalooza's back. I was pretty adamant that we push internationally.
Lala picks great people when no one's heard of them.
Boom, boom. Let's bring real music to the world. That's entertainment.
So I watched on when I finally discovered that I was actually paying for Paramount Plus. I want to say the summer of '94 was when I saw them. So it was like Beastie Boys and Smashing Pumpkins were the headliners.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ruby and I traveled this summer to Chicago for a college tour, along with kind of going to Philadelphia and Chicago in the same week. And Lollapalooza was going on. So, all your chaperones, all your peeps, all right there. Like we went to go see the Bean, take some pictures, but we're near like all the right there near Lollapalooza. And I did dabble in looking at some resale tickets. Mama doesn't have that kind of money. So I did not get those kinds of things because I'm also like, well, I am 49 years old. How do I want to experience Lollapalooza? Watching the documentary and watching, Lollapalooza originally conceived as a Jane's Addiction farewell tour. And they essentially chose bands that they liked to be on this tour.
Yeah, so who was in the original bill?
So the original bill for 1991 was Jane's Addiction, Susie and the Banshees.
Oh, yeah.
So Little Susie Sue, Living Color,
Mm-hmm.
9 Inch Nails, a very young and inexperienced 9 Inch Nails, Ice-T and Body Count, the Butthole Surfers, the Rollins Band, and then the Violent Femmes, who came in to replace, I want to say, somebody had kind of like went off for like the last like 4 dates of the tour. They came in, and then Fishbone kind of came in for the last few dates. So that's really the limits of the first tour. It was like Gen Xers on parade, guys. Like they're everywhere. I'm like, I'm you, you're me, we are one, watching this documentary. And it was pretty amazing to kind of watch the evolution of the show, the pitfalls, the ups, the downs. How do you package and sell alternative, right? When does that turn against you? Well, when you book Metallica on the tour. And, when people started criticizing the lineup and when the tour stopped kind of working and when it stopped kind of working altogether, and it went dormant for a while until it became a stationary show in Chicago in the 2000s and to be relaunched, as its own intellectual property in a different kind of way. And listeners, we're fully recording this when Jane's Addiction was on a reunion tour this week, and Perry Farrell and Dave Navarro just got in a fight.
Got into a fight on stage. Yeah.
On stage, and they've canceled the tour. Rock is volatile, everybody, right? But this is also a time when, Ice-T and his band are singing, like this, like Kill the Police, like, and all this kind of discussion, right? Cop Killer, all this discussion about police violence and all of that. And they were able to do some cross-cultural, cross-racial stuff that was not happening anywhere else. And that was really interesting to me, and bring it to audiences that never would have really had access to it other than on television. And it just reminded me of also how plugged in we were to MTV at the time, as opposed to now. So,
wow.
But to be at something that's beginning and kind of not know it. Like, I think that was kind of intoxicating to me.
I love it. I've never really understood Lollapalooza. Like, it threads a line of music that I'm not really that into. I don't know. Like, it's a little heavier.
Yeah, it used to be the home. So like the early to mid 90s, it was the home of like what would be called alternative music, which really was like, it was it was mostly the grunge sound of Seattle, but then it started to loop out and include things like, I don't know,
Like
Better
metal.
Than Ezra or Gin
Yeah.
Blossoms, or like, all of these other bands that weren't quite rock and roll or were rock and roll and were getting lumped in.
Mhm.
I mean, even like Smashing Pumpkins, or like, LA bands like Alice in Chains, were kind of getting lumped in with this sort of style of music. And so then they were kind of like, it became sort of a home for those bands to sort of tour together as like a festival.
When
And
I
also
think of
some
it, I
of
think
the
of like
lineups vary, a
Mhm.
lot. Like some of them are a little more ragey, some of them are not.
That's what when I think
Yeah.
of Lollapalooza,
Yeah.
I think of probably when I was in high school, and I think of like Limp Bizkit. Did they play
Right.
Lollapalooza?
Like I look at the lineup that I went to, and like this feels like me: Smashing Pumpkins, Beastie Boys, George Clinton, and the P-Funk All-Stars, the Breeders, A Tribe Called Quest, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds,
That's great.
L7.
God, that's a great
Like that's a
lineup.
great
Jeez.
lineup, right? And like the side stage is like The Verve, Luscious Jackson, like Guided by
Luscious-
Voices, like Stereo Lab. Like these are like, but then if you get me into like a lineup that's more heavy, it's like not me.
Yeah, try
And I'm
like what was
oh, yikes.
1999?
All right, go ahead. Somebody say something. I'll get to the 1999 later.
See, there was like another festival in the late 90s that was like, it was a
The
corporate,
Horde Festival.
but
Right,
like all
maybe.
those new metal bands that you're talking about,
Mhm.
Liz, like
Yeah,
the
maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
like the Limp Bizkits and all of that stuff was like Warped, the Warp Tour.
The Warped Tour. that
Yes,
might be what
that
I'm
is what
thinking
you're
about.
thinking of.
Yeah.
See, and I didn't look at Google. I didn't look at my phone to figure that
We
out.
figured it out. We
How
figured
sweet.
it
So
out.
impressed.
This whole idea of like the music festival
Mhm.
feels very 90s to me in the sense that, and maybe that was when I was paying attention. So like Lollapalooza, Warped Tour, Lilith Fair,
Lilith Fair.
Mhm.
Farm Aid,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Oh, thank you, John
stuff like
Cougar
that.
Mellencamp. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just thinking of like, this idea of like, let's have a festival and we'll have a bunch of bands. I'm sure that still happens now, but
Yeah.
more often than not, the concerts that you hear about are individuals like Taylor Swift or Beyonce, or, it's like individual concerts, not necessarily like music festivals,
Liz, there was no Lollapalooza in 1999. It went from 91 to 97, and then it took a break till 2003. It was canceled in 2004, but then it started again in 2005 in Chicago. So
That's awesome.
1991.
Good one, 91. Good job.
Awesome. Wow.
All right, Gregory, where are we going
Yeah, round us out.
in your Toyota Camry of a
Um,
time machine?
We're going on a deep dive.
Ooh.
We're on a deep dive.
Oh no, I'm scared.
A year ago, I was watching TV and an episode of The Challenge USA came on. This is a spin-off of a show that was on MTV called The Challenge,
Mhm.
Hold on.
previously known
Hold
as
on.
The Real World Road Rules,
Real Road Rules Challenge.
right? But that's
I've been rewatching these. Have we talked about this? We have.
we have
Okay,
not been
just
talking
making sure.
about it, because if you're rewatching these, then we need to talk. 'Cause,
Holy crap, Greg!
'cause I
I've
am
been
in a
watching.
marathon right now. Okay, so a year ago, an episode of The Challenge USA. This was
Okay.
CBS was putting on episodes of The Challenge. So a year ago, this comes on. I start watching an episode. I watch another episode. I watch another episode. Really get into it. I'm like, where was I when the challenge was going on? Right? Like, how did I miss this? How was this a blind spot for me? And then I realized it was because, this has been going on since the late 90s. And now they are currently on season 40.
Oh my gosh.
So I pulled up season 40 to watch it and to see, like, I wonder if I would know some of these people. Well, what they're doing for season 40 is they're doing 10 contestants from each decade that the show has been on. So they have 10 contestants from like the first 10 seasons, 10 contestants from the second 10 seasons.
So they've got some old people on this show now.
It's like
Exactly.
an eras. It's like an eras type thing. Taylor
Exactly.
Swift. Yeah.
So and the people that I knew were all like in their 50s.
Right.
And like, hobbling out here doing physical challenges.
Excuse me. We don't hobble in our 50s. Hello. Careful.
I hobble when I get off a couch after I've been sitting on it for a little while.
Actually.
Okay, thank you.
Oh.
Okay, we do.
So what ended up happening was, like Betsy, I found out that I actually had access to Paramount Plus and didn't realize it. And so I fired up the app, and most seasons of the challenge are now currently on Paramount Plus. So I just started watching, and I watched all these old people that are in the current season. I watched them when they were very young people.
Oh, wow. So you did
And
time travel a little bit.
Here's the thing. The Real World was a show that I grew up with back in the day as a teenager. And it was actually a pretty, I think, really sort of responsible show and like a good thing to watch, because that's how I learned about like some diversity stuff from the first season with New York, because Julie was sort of exposed to this bigger world, and growing up in rural North Carolina, like she was sort of my character into this bigger world, right? LA was just like,
I went to Episcopal summer camp with the guy she married. There we go. Yeah, here we go.
The LA season.
They did an abortion on the LA one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The LA season 2, dealt with abortion. It dealt with sexual assault and stuff like that. And then, of course, probably the most defining season was season 3, San Francisco, with Pedro and his AIDS diagnosis and how he was living with AIDS at the time, right? And so I really love The Real World. And eventually The Real World ultimately devolves into like, MTV getting a bunch of models in like a mansion and just plying them with alcohol over and over again.
Hot tubs.
Yeah, and it just becomes just horrible. And I thought that like, okay, well, that's probably what the challenge is. And that is what the challenge is. Like it's bringing all these real world people back into a mansion, plying them with alcohol, but this time giving them physical challenges to do with each other, and then eliminating a character periodically. But there was something too, like watching a current season, like the season that's on right now, season 40, and seeing how these people have evolved. And recognizing that like reality television isn't real. And I totally understand that, right? Like these are characters that MTV is asking them to play on a television show for people's entertainment. But you have a person like CT, for instance. CT was a guy that was on The Real World Paris back in the day, and then was in like every season of the challenge, it seemed like. And was this hot-headed kid from Boston. He's constantly getting in fights. He was saying the worst possible things, to people. And you sort of see his growth as a person and how he realizes that's not sustainable. Like he can't be that guy like his entire life. And he grows and he matures and he evolves. And now he's like this old man in this house full of 20-year-olds that are hot-headed and immature and getting in fights and doing bad things. And he's like this voice of wisdom and experience, like coming back to them and saying like, hey, come on, you don't need to do that. It's not like, that's not going to get you anywhere. That's not going to be the thing, that you're going to want to remember.
Whatever, Jimmy. Yeah, just pack your roll. This kid's just deflecting right now because he doesn't want to address the issue at hand. No wonder why I was getting into so many fights. Like, I want to punch this kid. I mean, I eat all day. I'm known as the bottomless pit of the family. Milk and cookies, it's my only excuse to cheat on my diet, and I'm taking advantage of it. Milk and cookie eating contest. Trying to act like he's all good. Stone Cold Killer right there. Okay, I put a lot of work into this, all right? Hours. In Paris, I got there, I believe I was like 190, 195 shredded. I could eat whatever I want. I can go out drinking, wake up the next day, go to the gym, no problem. That don't happen anymore. If I go out drinking, I need 2 or 3 days to recover. And a bowl of pasta.
If I can give my younger self any advice, I would
Stay humble. Settle down there, superstar. You got lucky, hit the lottery, won a free trip. Go cut your hair. If I had a fight with
It's like I'm moving through time in two different ways. I'm moving backwards from this one point to where they are as kids, and I'm watching them as kids grow into the people that they are now. And it just reminds me that, like, it's so easy, especially like for reality contestants or reality shows, or just anyone that's in public media, or even like people that live in our memories. It's so easy for us to think of them as sort of static beings, like these things that stay where they are and don't move and don't change and don't evolve and don't grow and don't do anything. And that's not true. Like, everybody changes and grows and evolves, and like their lives change and their circumstances change, and who they are as people changes as a result of what happens to them. And so I wouldn't say that the challenge, I wouldn't say that the Real World, I wouldn't say that Road Rules, I wouldn't say that any of these things were good shows apart from like when they first premiered. But there is something amazing about watching people grow that I think is important. And I think it only can happen when you have like 30 years of like these characters and just seeing what happens from year to year to year. And so anyway, so I have been on a challenge deep dive, and so that's my time travel is back to the Real World and back to today. So.
You literally have time traveled in a sense.
Greg, I cannot believe that we have done this independendly of one another.
That is crazy, dude.
Freaking bananas.
Well, Bananas is who I just watched. He just went. Bananas just.
Okay, do not spoil anything for me. Don't spoil anything for me. Okay, so here's what I did. So I got on to the Paramount Plus. I evidently do not have as whatever high Paramount Plus situation you have. I cannot see the new season. I do not have 40. I don't have it. So I was like, well, maybe I'll just watch like one season under. And then I started playing it. I'm like, I don't know who any of these people are.
Right.
So then I decided I'm going back to the 2000s. So I'm essentially living what my students would like to have. I've gone all the way back. I'm like the cheaper jewelry, the low rise jeans, the tube top with just the tie around the neck. Like it is just like the frosted hair, like it is just 2000
that are like off to the side.
The Von Dutch, but they all have like tape on them because in MTV you can't show branding, right, for other things that are not paying sponsorship. So like things with like tape on them, like it is a time travel moment. And just to see the prizes they win and how excited they get excited about them. Like I didn't know Oakley made sunglasses that had an MP3 player in them. I don't know whether you all knew this, but I didn't know that technology existed. It evidently didn't exist for very long, and then it's gone.
They're characters on TV, but they're also people. And I think that, I think that that's what really struck me as I was thinking about talking about this today, is like this idea of you just don't know who somebody is or who ultimately they're going to turn out to be, even though you think you do.
I haven't thought about that whole franchise in forever. And now I want to know if I have Paramount Plus and I don't know it. That's great.
I know Ricardo's like, I don't even it's okay. It's good.
I'm hanging out with Gertrude Stein in our happy place.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Everyone time travels where they want to time travel.
As long as Gertrude is protecting you, that's all I care about.
That's right. You and Gertrude Stein, me and Eric Nies. Same.
Oh God, Eric.
I just that idea. I mean, okay, I don't want to sit over here like being all snobby guy or anything. So, but so I will say that idea is fascinating, of seeing someone in their 50s who is like a little snot in his whatever early 20s, and trying to communicate some of the lessons he's learned to the snotty 20-somethings, and how probably they don't want to hear it, I'm guessing, on the show. I don't know.
I think they tolerate the veterans. They
right.
But I'm also interested in the way that people who were LGBTQ or whatever put themselves out on the other shows and then were cast on the challenge, the evolution of that on the show, I'm also interested in that. Because like the last season I watched was with Davis on the show and kind of him and being, you know, I'm a tough guy. I may be gay, like, but you know, and it's like 2007 and talking about being tough and competitive and gay, you know, on TV.
Is MTV still around?
Yes, that's the other thing that's been crazy is that as I've been watching the challenge, I've been getting promos for other MTV shows, and it's all the stuff that Liz grew up with. It's Teen Mom 4.
I love Teen Mom. I love the Teen Mom
brought
franchise.
back Jersey Shore. They've got like it's all these old people.
Yeah, the teen moms that I watch are now in their 30s.
Yeah.
Like their kids are teenagers now.
Well, and like I also have no idea how the student who I surveyed was like, oh yeah, Radiohead 1993, The Beach House.
Right.
Like that's a very specific summer run of MTV.
Yeah.
Right. And then when the 2000s kids were like, oh yeah, the 2000s, I'm like, okay, so Carson Daly, Watch What Happens Live. Like, this is your life. Like, this is what you're doing. You're running home from school. See what's happening.
In conclusion to our time travel episode, as I get closer and closer to needing to go to bed, I maybe have said this on the podcast before, but years ago, I had a literal dream in my sleep where I showed up at a bachelorette party with a bunch of girlfriends. These are real girlfriends in my real life. And the activity of the bachelorette party was time traveling back in time. Okay, that's what we were doing. Like instead of going bar hopping, we were going time traveling. And in order
together or separately?
Together. We were like partying through history, right? Great dream. But before we departed on our time travel adventure, we all had to get vaccinated for diseases that no longer exist. And I woke up thinking I was a damn genius. Can you believe that my subconscious came up with that?
Wow.
You're such a nerd. You are such a nerd, Liz.
In order to successfully time travel, you would need to be vaccinated for like smallpox.
Yeah.
For all kinds of things.
And then you reached over and you felt your upper arm and you felt that smallpox.
I don't have
scar
that one. I don't
right
have
in that
one.
moment.
Yeah, but then I woke up.
That's what I wanted for you.
No, but can you believe that I came up with that in a dream? God,
it's a book.
Great
freaking
job, Liz.
Genius. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you everyone for listening to yet another time travel episode of Popping Collars. Where would you like to time travel? Would you need to get vaccinated? I don't know, but you may have thought about this. So let us know, what pop culture time period would you like to travel to? Visit us on poppingcollarspodcast.com. Visit us on Instagram. Exactly, our socials, which I think is primarily Instagram. Is that right?
Yeah, we're all over Instagram, Facebook.
Send us a direct message.
We're on the Meta.
We're on Facebook again?
Yeah, we're on the Meta apps.
I was not aware.
Oh my God.
Send us and slip into our DMs and tell us where you would time travel to. We want to know. With that,
it does feel like we should have a MySpace page right now based
or a
on the time travel,
Friendster.
but we don't. Friendster. Yeah,
Friendster. That was my first social media.
We do have a MySpace page. It's just not.
Shut up.
It's just not like it was created 10 years ago, but it hasn't been updated in a while. So
we're so old.
I'm gonna find it.
Time travel back to the time when we started this pod. We were young. We were adorable. And on that note, thank you, Greg. Thank you, Betsy. Thank you, Ricardo. We'll see you next time, and keep those collars popped.
Pop, pop.
Great job.
Good job, Liz.
Thank you very
Wow.
much.
Good job.
Beautiful hosting.
Thanks. I don't know how you guys stay up so late on the East Coast.
You started as a newborn baby giraffe at the beginning of this episode, and you just killing the game at the end here.
Thank you.
Dropping central.
Just
in your oatmeal pullover,
Yes.
right.
which is essentially a more athleisure version of your sweater.
My quarantine sweater. Yep.
Yeah,
Honestly, my eye's just been on Ricardo's neckline the entire time. That's what's kept me.
I mean, I want it so bad.